Good morning and welcome back to the AM Society, your morning podcast that is fear-free and fact-focused. I'm Anna and I'm here with my co-host Maggie, and we're going to bring you tough conversations, politically diverse guests, and a new standard, civility. Now, today's podcast is going to focus on school closures and reopenings during the pandemic.
Morning. Guess what? It's almost the weekend. I know it's 7 a.m. and it's early, but we're close, y'all. We are close. Well, thank you guys so much for coming back. It means the freaking world to me, at least. Right, Anna?
Yes, we're so happy. Thank you, guys.
Excited. Well, so kind of to go into our topic, school closures during the pandemic have been a really hot topic since March of 2020, as we know. And there are many different perspectives from either side of the argument we will be covering. By the end of this podcast, well, we want you to be able to decide for yourselves whether school closings were a bad idea or a good idea through the different perspectives we will present you with.
Exactly. Yeah, so we have a couple different guests today to kind of share those different perspectives. Our first guest is going to be Haley Nottage. She is an elementary school teacher from Tennessee. Our second guest is going to be Liliana Norcatus, who is a student in 10th grade in Maryland. And then our third guest is going to be Anna O'Connor, who, besides having an awesome first name, is a mental health advocate and a life coach.
That's bias. You don't have bias energy on this podcast.
Yes.
Whatever. Well, okay. To get serious, to set the scene, in the beginning of the pandemic, schools shut down. And honestly, I was a grad student at the time, so it affected me too. We went straight to virtual, and spring semesters were completely shut down. But during the summer, Texas, Arkansas, Florida, and Iowa mandated that schools would be open by fall 2020. And as we've seen, it's kind of changed. My brother's in Texas.
Yeah, it's changed
shout out
a
to
lot.
the boys.
Yep.
It's changed, and he's now more of a hybrid. But I will get into that in just a second. But other states took a variety of approaches, some virtual/hybrid and some all virtual. When I say hybrid, I mean that kids, specifically in Virginia as my example, or Texas, they have school either Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or they do online Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You get the gist. And sometimes they even have school in the morning virtual, and then sometimes school in the afternoon in person, where they have to wear their masks. They have to sit in their cubicles with their glasses up, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, we saw that in Maryland too. And also, like, sometimes the states don't mandate something, but they leave it up to the individual counties. That's like what we saw here, is that the state kind of set guidelines, and then each individual county's gotten to kind of implement what they want.
It's not a bad idea to do it. But specifically, Dr. Robert Redfield on July 23rd, 2020, specifically said, it is critically important for our public health to open schools this fall. And guess what? The king himself, Dr. Fauci, agreed. So it's been written in stone, y'all. It's the end. You have to listen to the king, apparently. It's great. But we keep looking at only one side of the argument, which is the students and their impact, when really it's the teachers as well. They're split over the issue. And we really should be listening to their voices because, they're the ones doing the work. And as we know, older teachers are concerned. Younger teachers are more 50-50 as well whether wanting to go back to work or not. But the real struggle is that a lot of the older generation teachers have technological issues. God, I can't talk to them. Sorry.
It's hard to even say technological or not even use it.
Yeah, really. I'm struggling with it. I can only imagine what they're doing. And virtual teaching gets really frustrating for those older generations because they're not used to it. They're getting thrown into this whole new environment of, hey, here you go. This is what we're doing now. And it's like, oh,
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then realistically, also, we have to mention kind of the political aspect of it, which is the teachers' unions, which they, as everyone knows, they skew Democrat, and they have a lot of political influence and monetary influence over Democrats in local, state, and federal policy. Historically, they've given Democrats at least 94% of the funds they contribute to candidates and parties since as far back as 1990.
It's interesting because in the last election, the California Union Association gave $2 million to the Democratic Party in California.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Exactly. That's a lot.
Crazy. They're kind of like, hey, if you want money, you gotta listen to us. It's not about the student at that point. It's about their power, which is,
it's a lot of power. It's what the policies they're pushing. And then in 2020, in just the 2020 election cycle, The teachers unions primarily, so the two big ones are the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers. These guys, they donated to the tune of over 40 billion to Democratic candidates just in 2020 alone. So we're just saying that the power behind that money, there is a bit of political leverage there to demand certain policy changes. Other workers, grocery store workers, janitors, construction workers who've also had to be working in person during the pandemic, they don't have that same access to power. Yeah. So, and we've also seen that the more powerful, connected, and influential a union becomes, the less connected it becomes with the individual concerns of its members, just because it's hard, if you're big and powerful, it's difficult to kind of represent each of the individual concerns.
So it's funny because if you look at California's 2 million, sorry to cut you off really quick,
no,
just this idea. California, it's payback for the last episode. Yeah. Anyways, California has fallen in rank when it comes to education since 1975, because of where they're putting the money rather than putting it back into their education systems. They're more focusing on how much power they have in a political field rather than, watching their kids.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the teacher who wants to go back and teach, which we've heard from some who do, they're not represented by the teachers unions at all. So, like you mentioned, California too, the teachers union in LA recently said that in order to get their support for going back to school, LA needed to support things like defunding the police and passing Medicare for all, which regardless of what you think of those policies, what does that have to do with opening schools again?
It's kind of like the stimulus package where like a bunch of random stuff gets thrown in there and you're like, wait, that's not helpful.
Like what?
That doesn't help me.
Yeah.
How does it help with my pandemic problem? Giving money to other countries?
So some politicians, they paint the debate about opening schools again as kind of like a zero-sum game, as if it's like an evaluation of whose health matters more, teachers or students. But this is, we believe, a false ultimatum. Both matter. And the guests that we're inviting on, they're going to try to kind of share these perspectives with you so we can really show you this. We have our first guest, who is Haley Nottage, and she is a teacher of 6th grade math in Tennessee. Haley, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm pretty good. How about you guys?
Good.
Fantastic. It's Friday.
Friday morning.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, so Haley, that's like the 6th time you've said that today, Maggie. You're like,
you know what? I'm excited about this. I'm always happy on Fridays.
Yes. When you make it.
You know what?
Haley's a school teacher. I'm sure she's happy on Fridays.
Oh yeah, sometimes I live for Fridays, honestly.
Yes,
exactly.
So Haley,
not just
we wanted to ask you kind of about your perspective as a teacher during the school closures and potential reopenings during the pandemic. We just wanted to kind of see what are some of the difficulties you've faced as an educator during the pandemic, and what are kind of just general thoughts on virtual / in-person learning.
Or hybrid.
Yeah. So I've experienced both this year so far. So I think any teacher you ask, the first thing they'll say is virtual is not the same as in person. Mm-hmm. Definitely not the same. And where I feel that most is with student accountability and engagement. I know for myself, sitting in on meetings all day, I start kind of veering off, my mind kind of goes everywhere. And so I know for our kids, it's really hard, especially at this age. I mean, the boys I'm teaching are, 12, 13-year-old boys. And so they're having to, sit all day and, be at home.
That's
and
not possible.
Have that responsibility on their own. Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah. So kind of, sorry, say it again.
I said, that's really hard. I have 2 brothers, so I can only imagine at that age, honestly.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And their parents are often at work. And so they're the ones having to make sure they get on class in time and, make sure they take their lunch break and get right back to class and not get distracted by, the 2K21 that just came out, so
right.
Things like that. Right. It's a struggle. Yeah. I will say one thing I've noticed is some students do better online, which is kind of interesting. I think it's been a positive thing just through all of this for parents to kind of see what works best for their children. And so I had a mom recently and her child's autistic. And she said, he's thrived this year. She's like, he paces himself. He's able to process what he's doing. He, gets online and he has time for his assignments. So for them, she's loved this virtual year for him. And so a challenge that comes along with that is I haven't actually seen her son in person this whole year Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah. So he's thriving and I enjoy him so much in class. But a challenge has been also kind of creating that classroom culture because currently we're going back to, right now we're virtual, we're going back to hybrid next week. But I will still have a class that is hybrid. So they're, going in between in-person learning and online. But I have another class that will stay online until the end of the school year, which means when the school year ends, I wouldn't have seen them once this year,
Wow.
Jeez, wow.
Yeah. So that's definitely been interesting. Just, most of us go into the field for the kids, I feel like very few teachers, you'll ask them, why'd you go in? And they're like, oh, for testing and standards. I just love that.
I hope that's nobody's answer. I hope nobody's ever said that.
Exactly.
They're lying.
Exactly. Right. Or might be the wrong field.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's been hard this year. Just, I've heard a lot of teachers say it's hard, trying to challenge them and stay on them, but also extending grace because, man, this year's has been so rough for them, even for the social aspect of not seeing their friends and not getting out, not having that outlet, even sports and things like that.
Yeah.
Technology issues, that's another challenge.
Oh, we know plenty about that.
Oh, yes. So while I found some really cool resources, this year's definitely challenged me to get online and find ways to make learning fun and exciting for them. Some days it just backfires. I remember making a lesson I was so excited about. It was one of the first days of virtual. I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna let this change. The learning environment, it's going to be great. And it completely bombed because all of their Wi-Fi that day
that's so
was just
sad.
Terrible.
Oh,
yes.
That's so sad that you were excited about it.
I know.
Down at all.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's so painful.
Yeah. And that happens more often than not. Yeah. And so those are things just out of both of our control. So some days it's like, all right, guys, that didn't go as planned. That's all right. We'll try again tomorrow. Here's the questions I need you to just get through and send a picture to me instead of your work, instead of being able to go online. Some days the sites we're using just shut down because what is it? The Broadwidth band or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's large enough for all of the students on there. And so, yeah, those are just some challenges this year. Behavior issues sometimes, just, calling parents saying, hey, we haven't seen your kid in class, keeping in contact and making sure that we're reaching out to those parents.
Yeah. Have you seen, has that situation and experiences, do you think it's been kind of similar across different grade levels, or is there differences between different grades and how they learn and kind of deal with the virtual / in-person stuff?
I honestly would say it's about the same throughout the grade levels. So,
oh yeah, my sister's 16 and is struggling, so it definitely hits.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I think while maybe different schools, different grades, maybe have small different problems, I think overall it's just a rough year. Distractions are there, and especially working at an all boys school. At that age, that middle school age, it's kind of hard to focus and stay still. And when you're home and that at lunchtime you can watch a show. And your mom's not
your
going to be,
Xbox
on your back. Yeah, like stopping you from kind of, just veering off into one more show.
Yeah.
So I would say a big challenge this year, I've talked to so many teachers, has been, so we've had to remind people, we're not calling the shots this year. Like we're just doing our jobs.
Kind of there. Yeah.
Right. And so a big challenge has been also just, having conversations with people who aren't in the classroom or work with kids. We're like, oh, here's what you guys should do. Here's why you should do it. And it's like, all right, well, I don't these opinions you haven't really founded in anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Yeah. Just because we're doing our best, and we're trying to still, do our job. So that's been challenging as well. Just trying to please everybody. You really can't.
Yeah.
So with
kind
the
of
kids
along that. Oops, sorry. Go ahead, Maggie.
Actually, I have a really quick question. Actually, so
Yeah.
what do you do with the kids that are having problems? Is there anything you can really do, or is it just kind of I know this is all super new, but is there with your teachers plan, how you're so excited about it? Were you able to do it again? Were you what techniques would you suggest to other teachers if you could?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I really enjoy our school just because I really do feel like they work and do what they can to make sure each child's getting what they came to school for. And so I know for some of our kids, some of our ELL kids, our kids who are English language learners, We've requested that they come to the school. So while no other kids are at school, we do have a few kids that each day they'll come to school and they'll spend the day with our ESOL teacher, and she'll work with them throughout the day. So there's only a few of them there. For other students, I'll pull small groups, and so they'll stay after class with me online. And it's not the same as pulling small groups in person, but it's still helpful when I can see, okay, so and so has this. I'm going to send them off and keep these kids here. We've started something new. We've had to start is on Wednesdays we do review days. So we'll do a class lesson together, and then maybe do an assignment, either to answer your question, either maybe an assignment that didn't work out before that I was excited about that I can try again to send them off on, or something that I know some kids might struggle with, so they stay with me, and other kids who are just like, yeah, this makes sense, we got this, they might go and work on their own. So
Gotcha.
It's been a lot of just like, really the word would be finagling, just like figuring out what works, trying different things, because things just keep changing. It's hybrid, it's virtual, it's in person. Nothing's consistent this year, really.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that they all very much appreciate your hard work, and we really appreciate you coming on and sharing the perspectives. I know it's just really not easy for teachers this year, and so and Maggie, we both appreciate.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything you do. It
telling
must
us
be
about
tough.
that.
Yeah, thank you.
I could only imagine.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys.
Okay, so that was our first guest, Haley. So for our second guest, we have Anna O'Connor, and I know Anna's biased. We get it. Same name, whatever. But with Anna, she's a coach, a mental health advocate, and a mentor known for cracking people open so they can change their patterns and become the person they truly want to be. So she owns two businesses. One, Anna O Coaching, and she is also the co-founder of Brain Savvy. She has extensive experience coaching executives, D1 athletes, pro athletes, and teams. Well, good morning, Anna. Welcome to the show. All right, how are you this morning, Anna?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on. I love what y'all are doing. This is super. So needed right now. So needed.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for letting me join in on the fun.
Yeah, of course. So for our first question, what can parents and children do now to mitigate the psychological and emotional impact of school closures and the pandemic?
Great question, and a loaded question.
Oh yeah, I know. There's a lot of parts. I'm sorry.
Yes, I love it. No, that's great. And, I'm going to probably dab a little bit in what they're going through, and then I'm going to help with how they can, prepare for one day this will be over. First of all, that's a good thing to say every day.
Yeah.
Remind yourself that this isn't forever. And
you're free.
And so I believe I kind of been, dealing with, working with young people from ages 20 to late 30s, 40, with this whole pandemic, because in a way they've been dealing with it in a certain way. And then I've also been dealing with young high school, middle school young people in a way that's a little different too. So it's impacting everyone differently. And I've kind of drilled it down to three things that all of us, parents, adults, kids, everybody's dealing with. And the first one is loss, because it's not, of course it's loss if you have lost someone due to this pandemic, or if you've just lost someone, period, because a funeral isn't what it typically is. There is no, big coming together, all the loved ones and all that. It's a drive-by funeral. I've worked with somebody that had to experience burying their mother that way. And it's yeah, you're dealing with all the emotions of losing, a loved one, and then you're standing outside and waving as people drive by. It's just so unnatural. And I think loss really sums up what is being felt. The loss of experience, the loss of experiences that we, treasure, that we probably didn't even realize. And that's typical, the way our brain works and the way our body, reacts to things. You don't appreciate it until it's gone. It's like after you've had the tummy bug, The
Mhm.
day you wake up and feel good, you're like, oh, I feel normal.
Or when
I'm
your
so
nose is
thankful to be
clogged and then you
normal."
can breathe again.
Oh,
Yeah.
that first breath through your nose, you're like, oh my
that is
God.
the best feeling.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so I think that that's been something that people have been trying to navigate the best they can, of course. And, you know, for younger kids who don't have the cognitive ability to completely understand and navigate through what they're thinking, feeling, it can get really confusing. I think, if anything, they probably feel really confused and unsure of what's going on and how they need to go about it. If you think about an elementary kid, you know, they're staying home all day.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's so not normal.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
And when they typically stay home, it's because they're sick, right? Or they're off school.
Yeah.
And you add on top of that parents that work. You know, I work with a client that has a pretty big job and has two elementary kids. And it's, you know, she's on a big, important call and they're fighting, which is so normal.
Yeah.
And you know, she's wearing her corporate hat. So it's been very a lot of tension between who you are and not being able to separate from being the mom, the corporate person, or whatever your job is.
Mm.
And for kids, the same thing. From being, you know, the son or daughter at home and brother, sister, and at school, I'm the student and friend.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of that, and the loss of knowing what to be where. The other big loss, I think, is the spontaneous social interactions.
Mhm.
I don't think I certainly never even thought about it until this. And I was talking with my daughters, who are both college age girls, and talk about, you know, what they miss. And they're talking about, well, we text, and, you know, if we're going to call somebody, usually we'll text them and say, hey, can you talk? So that's not really spontaneous, right?
Mhm.
Spontaneous when you're in front of each other and you got to respond, or you're walking down the hallway and you see somebody you haven't talked to in a while, but you're friends, but you just don't text or talk that much. Or you're sitting next to somebody that you kind of know, but not really. And then in class, you end up in a study group and you get to know them really well. Or you're on a team and you have your baseball friends that you hang out with, but during the normal year, you don't hang out with them much. I mean, all these different spontaneous relationships, not to mention if you're like in your 20s and you're an adult and you work, but you're not going into work, you're not getting that socialization.
Yep.
The young kids aren't getting the socialization. So all of that loss is really heavy. And I had a young man describe it to me as he feels heavy in his chest. And a lot of times the heaviness in your chest relates to loss, or like you feel like you've done something wrong, or regret, something like that, that heaviness. And
like
as we
anxiety.
talked about, yeah, and it's more of a heaviness. Anxiety can feel a lot tighter. Not everybody, but generally speaking, everybody's their own individual, but generally speaking. And as we talked, he couldn't figure out what was bothering him. And I'm like, hey, you know, let's talk about it. And what he was missing was that spontaneous connection that when you just walk down your hallway, and, you know, we are meant to be social. We are relationship designed. And how hard is it right now if you're a young person out of college and single?
Yeah.
Pretty hard to meet people. So that being said, a lot of loss has been happening. It's 3 L's: lost, lonely, and lazy. So the lonely part comes from you're in your home, you feel separate from, even if you're, you know, on your phone texting, you know, people are realizing, yeah, we're connected, but we're not, because the real connection happens when we're in person and we can feel each other's energy. We can see each other's reactions. That's the real connection. And then the loneliness is the lack of opportunity to connect. It's just, we're not able to do it. And, you know, that really soothes us, and it can help keep our world bigger. And whenever, I always say this, when our world gets too small, it ain't good.
Yeah.
because then we start over focusing on things that typically we wouldn't even think about.
Well, and I guess too, people are probably trying to substitute like social media relationships and online relationships for
Mhm.
the in-person stuff. And probably that's not it's not the same thing. It's just not.
It really isn't. And I think maybe
Yeah.
younger people, like high school and younger, felt like it was like, I know my
Right.
friends, I'm really connected. We talk and text all the time,
Yeah.
whatever. And now they realize it. And, they're very lonely. Like the Z generation, I think is called the loneliest generation. So there is that missing link that we are designed to have, and that is face to face, and that is spontaneous, amazing conversations that we weren't planning on.
Yep.
That's the good stuff, right? The lazy thing, and I don't want people to take this wrong, but when you go on vacation and you take a break from work and life and you're just living this lazy life, right? Lazy and meaning that you're not having to stretch emotionally or be agile around other people and how they're doing things and what they're saying. You can just sort of be, you, and not worry about what you say or do. That has been stolen. I mean, so we come back from that vacation, we got to dive back into our life and be around people and adjust and we kind of don't feel like it. You know how we can kind of hold back and once we're out of the rhythm of something. So I think that's been something that people are finding, that when you get out of the rhythm of doing something, it's hard to get back in it. Our brain is lazy. I'm all about the brain. Everything relates to the brain, neuroscience. And, your brain likes what it knows and it resists what it doesn't, even if it's good for you and you want it. So getting back on the horse and getting around people and navigating that is hard. If you are an introvert, this lifestyle right now is not good for you because it's only catering to what you already struggle with.
Interesting.
Not able to stretch yourself, put yourself in those spots where you feel a little uncomfortable. The other lazy part is when we're at home and we're online, whether you're a student, working, whatever, we don't have to show up quite as on. Like you can be wearing your pajama pants and a sweater.
Yeah.
Yep,
I've definitely done that.
I'm definitely doing that right now.
And I'm wearing my workout outfit. So yeah, and that's what I do. Even if we've been face to face, I might have done that. But yeah. And so, we've gotten a little lazy about that kind of stuff. And then like in the education world, I mean, you got parents that are, maxed out. You got kids that are needy because this is all new. Something's got to give.
Yeah.
What is going to give? It could be patience. It could be caring about school. It could be the delivery of the education and how good it is. Something's got to give.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a laziness around education. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that because that's what has been dealt to us.
I mean, with all the factors, it makes sense.
Yeah. So with all that great news of loss, loneliness, and laziness, I do have some positive things. And with this, as back up to pre-pandemic, we were the fastest moving, never stop for a second, have your kids signed up in every activity possible. Make sure that everything's, done. Every weekend's jam-packed. We got something to do. There's always something planned. That there was very little time to be still.
Yeah.
And I always have to tell this story. My mom, I'm from the South. If you haven't noticed, I'm a little bit of an accent there. And my mom was from South Carolina, so she had a big accent. And when I was in high school, I'd be saying something, a problem or something. She would always say, Anna, just be still.
Aww.
And it annoyed me so much. And being still is being okay with you, sitting in you and getting to know you and realizing that all the stuff around us is fleeting. It doesn't last. It comes and goes, and you will be okay because you have everything you need inside of you. And I think with this world that we're in, with the media, and it's not just kids, it's adults, it's everybody, that we are visual people. And when we see somebody, you know, on a great trip or getting into 6 colleges or, you know, advancing into some club team tournament, the natural response is to compare yourself. That is the way we're wired. So the culture of comparison kept us striving for the next achievement. And so many people right now are struggling because what is my next achievement? I'm on my own, I'm here, I'm not able to do my typical outlets, the things that I usually get a lot of satisfaction and checking boxes, I'm not able to do. And they're looking for ways to, you know, get that feeling. So it's never from outside yourself. You're never going to get it there. Promise you. It's always got to be from within. If you think about elite athletes, you know, Michael Phelps, who I love dearly, he got out of the pool. I mean, he was phenomenal in the pool. I mean, nobody could crack him. I mean, he was, his mindset was extraordinary. Get him out of the pool. What happened?
Right.
He didn't have his boundaries. He didn't have his black line to follow on the bottom of the pool. He went a little off track because he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to balance life without checking a box.
Right. So you're saying that the positive impact would be that people have like time and space to really sit down and kind of evaluate themselves and kind of get out of their normal routines and figure out their lives independent of those structures.
Exactly. And what a phenomenal opportunity. We will never, I hope never, have so much time.
Let's just not do this again.
Right?
Yeah,
let's not. Let's not.
Let's say we did. Let's just, you know what? Let's just say we did.
Let's just not say we did.
And if it does come again, let's do something different.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, travel more. But Anna, thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much for coming on the show. Your perspective means the world. Honestly, it kind of opened my eyes to exactly what's going on into like a more brain focused perspective. Yeah. Which honestly I appreciate. I'm sure our viewers will definitely appreciate.
Yes.
Because we're all kind of feeling the same way. Just putting into words helped a lot.
Right. And accepting it. I'm feeling kind of lonely. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Be still, breathe, look for the good, ask the greatest question in the world. The most phenomenal gift is, what can I do?
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, girls. I really appreciate it. I love it. Keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so our third guest that we have today is a young woman by the name of Liliana Norkaitis, and she is a junior at Falston High in Maryland. She's super active in her community. She's all about the community engagement. So she is here with us today to talk about the impact of shutdowns, kind of from a student perspective. So how are you doing today, Liliana?
Hi. So yes, my experience with the pandemic has definitely been somewhat unnatural.
To say the least.
Yeah. The last time I walked into my high school was as a sophomore on a random Friday in March. And the day prior, I'd just been selected to be captain of my JV tennis team when the coach halted practice to watch Governor Hogan's announcement to close schools until March 27th. And here we are at the end of January, and I have yet to walk into my school as a junior.
Wow.
Jesus.
Yes. Now, I'd say the one thing that's nice about my county's model for virtual learning is that there are no class meetings on Fridays. So we have time to do assignments and homework without having additional screen time after the school day. Now, on the flip side of that, I've had several cases where I just completely lost connection. I live in the woods. I'm like right across the farm. So it is a struggle to get on the class depending on the weather. There have been days where my teachers would just end class early because the connection to Microsoft was so bad. Wow. But I have teachers that make the best of it and they ensure that the class is engaging. My law teacher lined up a judge and a police officer to join our meeting and answer questions about their professions. My U.S. history teacher always allows our students to share their opinion about different topics in the curriculum, which makes the day a little less dreadful. Some teachers do very well to make virtual learning less depressing, but there are definitely teachers that don't team to try to make
Mm.
the best of the environment. But I will most definitely be returning for the new hybrid model that begins on March 15th. We will be doing a 1 day a week model, and hopefully short after we can return to more days, if not the whole week.
Yeah.
And that's just a little glimpse of my experience as a
Yeah. So
student.
how has it been kind of with like the socialization and sports and arts and music, that kind of stuff? Like
Are
talking
there
a little bit
sports?
about your experience with that.
N-
Oh,
yeah.
Wait,
so
hold on. Are there
for-
sports? Or are you doing virtual sports too? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
we
Virtual
did-
soccer.
You know, really.
We-
Hey,
yeah, we
we's a
had-
thing.
Yeah, we had virtual sports for about one season, but then I was actually thrown on the committee to try to come up with a plan. And of course, like with anything, doing it virtually is just not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So no one
Yeah,
really,
especially with
like no one,
sports.
exactly.
What?
So-
Well, I thought you
No
were
one
kidding. I was like sitting here like, oh my God, she actually just said we did do virtual
no.
sports. And I'm sitting here going, what? Oh
That
my
was the thing
Lord.
for a month. And then that's what we never went into like the winter and spring sports because no one did the fall ones. So
Dang.
that went away. But with no regarding like clubs and extracurriculars, part of like the Fridays, clubs are allowed to do like meetings then. So I have my debate team, academic team, student government meetings that are all on Fridays. So again, they're virtual and we just kind of like talk. There's really not much we do. With debate, we just talk about different topics, which is totally different than doing like tournaments
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
in person. With academic team, we normally every year a couple of students are picked to participate with the TV show It's Academic. Now this year the show is virtual, so that's a whole nother thing that's just, again, it's so different, but it's just trying to make the best of the situation.
Yeah. So it's safe to say then you are ready and excited to have schools open back up again.
I am very ready.
Have they told you what they're going to do
Yes.
with classes while it's hybrid? Like, do you have to wear a mask at your desk? Do you have to sit in one of those like plastic cubicles? Are they like, what are they doing when they
Yes,
like
we
with your
will.
school?
We will have masks, and I'm pretty sure we'll be social distanced. I know I just saw that on the 27th. So yeah, on the 27th, our board is voting on whether they are going to approve in the budget for plexiglass to go around like the teachers and the students, which a lot of people are opposing it because they think it's kind of wasteful to do.
Yeah.
Like work. We should be fine with the masks. And our teachers are getting vaccinated. I know on Monday, all of my sister's teachers, she's in elementary school, so they were given the chance to do all the vaccines. Next Monday is the secondary schools, so we have the middle schoolers. Then the following Monday, on February 8th, will be the high schooler teachers.
Now, what's your sister's experience been like?
She has definitely been struggling. Her grades are not as good because, again, no one has the attention span at 8 years old to just sit there and do school. So it's constantly like, oh, we have to check her screen time of like, what else were you doing? And when she's sitting in a room with a bunch of toys, she's going to pick the toys over doing schoolwork.
Yeah,
I mean, I would pick toys.
I mean, I would pick toys over having like that's not that hard. Like,
yeah.
Sorry, mom and dad. I would pick the toys.
My goodness.
Every time.
Yeah. We've heard it's extremely difficult for students in all types of grades. So, but we really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. And we're really excited for you and your sister to be able to return hopefully soon back to your classrooms. So thank you, Lily.
So that's it for our main part of the show for today, but listeners could draw their own conclusions from these different perspectives. As we all have heard, it's really difficult for everyone right now, students, parents, teachers, anyone involved, especially
everybody.
every single person is having a problem right now. So this is when we will move into our good news of the day. Please
Woo,
submit your
relief.
good news.
Please.
I know, right?
Let's have some good news.
I know. We have a, we've seen the climate. It's been great. But please submit your good news by Wednesday afternoon every week, and we will feature you in our show.
Yeah.
Just a
We'll
reminder.
feature you. Submit
Put you
it.
everywhere. Media, everything. We
You'll be
got this.
famous.
Oh, sure. Yeah, for about 5 seconds, but
Uh-huh.
it's okay. So, Anna, any good news?
Well, okay, so actually before we talk about other people's good news, I have good news to share, Maggie. My
Oh,
good news
shit.
is actually my parents have good news, which is
Aw.
they just had their 30th anniversary.
Aw, congrats.
So cute. 30
Congrats,
years.
congrats. Happy anniversary.
Imagine being married to somebody for 30 years.
Haha. Don't make me answer that on the podcast.
No, but I'm super happy for them. They
That's
took a
good.
little 3-day vacation. I gave them a bottle of wine. I tried to hide it in the trunk of their car, but then my dad packed the trunk of the car and he found the wine, and I was like, oh crap. But
Thanks,
I still
Dad,
gave
for
them a little wine.
ruining the surprise.
Yeah.
Of course. But yeah, the only good news I've heard this week is that a friend of mine got a new puppy. It's a Labradoodle. It's really cute. You
Ooh.
know who you are. I won't shout out names. But oh my God, the prettiest little eyes. I'm like
Aw.
to die for. Just a little fluff ball, 8 weeks.
Little fluff ball.
Just 8 weeks of 8 weeks of happiness and love, and it makes me so
I
happy.
love it. You know what? Pets really help people through the pandemic. I would highly recommend it. Like,
Oh
my
yeah,
cat
two
is my
cats are
emotional
same.
support.
Yep. My cats are great, and I love them to death.
Yes.
And we warned people we would talk about them, but
Yeah, we did. Fair
if you
warning.
know them, you know they're great, and
They are.
I love my babies.
Yes. Drew and Milo.
But yeah, that's our good news for the week. I know, not that much, but hopefully we'll have more next week. Remember, big or small, we'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
Serious inquiries only. But this is our last segment. It's called Final Thoughts. And so my final thoughts will focus on what Anna O'Connor discussed on how the school closures have affected us mentally with a few outside stats. She used the words lazy, lonely, and loss, which affect us all in different ways. But my final thoughts will focus on a very difficult topic, suicide. Federal surveys show that 40% of Americans are now grappling with at least one mental health or drug-related problem. But young adults between the ages of 18 to 24 years old have been hit harder than any other age group, with 75% struggling. Even more alarming, when the CDC recently asked young adults if they had thought about killing themselves in the past 30 days, 1 in 4 said they had.
That's
For
crazy.
example, I know it's like I'm like going through my friend group and I'm like, oh my God, like I
Yeah.
hope everyone's okay. It's just like
Yeah.
it's nerve-wracking to read it and put perspective. If you have 5 friends,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
person is sitting there like having those thoughts, and it breaks my heart. But
Yeah.
an example of this is Las Vegas and Baltimore have unfortunately been plagued with this issue. Las Vegas had to force open their schools because of this issue. So my final thoughts are, this wasn't meant to scare you, but more to make you realize we are all in this together. Wait, no. We have to be in this together. So check in on each
Yeah.
other, because every ounce of communication helps, whether you believe it or not. Even a simple hi, a person you haven't seen or talked to in 4 years, like
Yeah.
just reach out. You never know if that like hi will change somebody's day.
Yeah. And
So,
also kind of
out
piggybacking
for
on
each
that, I
other.
think you can probably use social media actually too to kind of spread good, messages, or if there's good accounts that are talking about mental health and kind of practical ways to help that. It
Yeah,
might be
Jay Smitty's a
worthwhile,
great example of that. I love
Yeah.
him. He's a monk.
Yeah.
I will shout him out because I love his account. He's so
Yeah.
helpful, and he makes visual videos
That's
of
awesome.
different disorders and different situations when it comes to relationships with family, friends, anyone, honestly, and
Yep.
telling you how to handle it, or it's kind of like a feeling of you're not alone. Like,
Yeah, you're not.
okay to feel certain ways, but just don't let it get to the
Yep.
don't hit rock bottom.
And especially
always a way
if
to
you're,
get help.
if your school is closed, if you've, had to experience a lot of different changes throughout this
Yeah.
year, no matter what age or grade you're in, just be sure, like if you're struggling, just reach out to somebody. There's, lots of people are going through this exact same scenario.
Oh yeah.
So
And if you have an animal, worship it because they're very helpful.
They're the
the
best.
I know. They're just
Now, so
nice.
my final thoughts before we wrap this up. So a couple points I want to make about school closures. The first one, kind of going back to our earlier conversation, I just want to emphasize, when you see in the news stuff about teachers unions and teachers are not the same thing. They're just
No,
not. They're
huge
not the same
difference.
thing.
Yeah.
So make sure that, like, when you see bad stuff about teachers unions, like, lobbying for whatever, and you're like, how could the teachers be doing this? Don't assume that the teacher who's teaching your child is automatically agreeing with everything that the teachers union is saying. Teachers are going through a lot this year too, and I think that the teachers unions really don't represent the opinions of a lot of them. So just kind of keep that in mind when if you're a parent dealing with kids in elementary, middle, high, or if you're a student, you're seeing like, what, the teachers unions are saying this? How does my teacher think that about me? Like, just have that in mind. The second thing, this is kind of more of a sociological kind of thing. We've seen affluent parents pull their students and put them into private schools instead. This means, if you think about it, it means the school budgets for the following years, which are somewhat based on student attendance, are going to be really tight. It also means that school closures disproportionately affect low-income students. So when you're thinking about that, kind of just, I personally tend to fall on the side that schools should be reopening, and I think that this is one of the factors that goes into that decision for me, is that, like, it's not fair to have a policy that so blatantly affects different income levels in society so differently.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to take care of the low income students as well. It's just doesn't seem right to me. And then finally, I think that while some special needs students are well adapted to virtual learning, as Haley correctly mentioned, I think there's also quite a few who I've heard from who have significantly regressed. And I think since the opinions on this and the experiences on this are so diverse, I think it's really, when it comes down to, like, what should the policies be? Are we open? Do we close? Like, these are questions that need to be asked right now. So I think it really should be down
a long time.
to
I feel like we should be asking.
the individual. It should be down to the individual
Mm-hmm.
student, the teacher, the parent, to kind of like make this choice. I think that policy should emphasize choice. Teachers who choose to go back, go back. Students who want to go back, go back. Parents who want to send their kids back should be able to do so. I think that instead of having blanket solutions to everything, we really need to take more into account the desires of the teachers, the students, and the parents, more so than having federal, state, and sometimes even local policymakers who are not listening to the students, the parents, and the teachers. So I think
because
choice,
it's all about the money too.
Exactly, right.
The teacher unions.
Exactly. Yeah. So
the
choice is
flowing.
crucial, and I think the more ground level that decision making is, rather than federal, state stuff, the better, in my opinion. So those are my kind of final thoughts on it. I hope you guys have enjoyed the
just to piggyback really quick on
the
unions.
guests, and
just one more thing, like how you said there's a
Sure.
huge difference. Like, I was forced into a union during my retail job, and I'm completely against unions. So, like, again, just to reiterate,
right, it's not right.
Be
There is
careful
a
who you
separation.
attack. Like,
Yes, yeah,
just
exactly.
don't
Do
put
the
everyone
research
into a bubble. We're
and
tired
see
of it.
what's going on behind it.
Everyone's different.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So I think that's all that we have for today. We hope you guys enjoy this. Thank you again for coming back to our second episode, and we hope to see you back next week.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your Friday, y'all.